Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be giving a short presentation on who we are as an organization. We are the Center for Community Action and Environmental Justice. During these times, it's really, I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to do this virtually, but hopefully sometime in person, I'll be able to do this for you guys as well. And then we will, of course, have a follow-up Q&A. So this is a presentation. Who is CCAJ? So we are part of a movement. I like to say this, right, because there are a lot of environmental injustices happening throughout the U.S., globally, right? So we are part of a movement. We're part of something way bigger. We're an organization in Southern California that is nonprofit. We're organizing to recreate a system that supports other communities alongside other organizations and other community members from different parts of the state, different parts of the nation. So some words to know, this can get a little bit tedious, right? So the first word is an ISR, or the acronym, excuse me. It's an indirect source rule, and I'll dive in a little bit more onto what that is later. And so environmental justice, right? I went around the office asking folks, what would you define as environmental justice? So what I kind of created a hybrid of what my coworkers and what the folks at CCAJ were saying. And it's a social justice movement when communities unite and fight back against environmental racism and develop a plan for healthy living free of pollution. And then we also talked about environmental racism, right? So that's when polluters target disadvantaged communities because of race, socioeconomic status, and historically structured oppression of people of color. And I'll also dive into that a little bit later. We also have emissions, the production and discharge of something, especially gas or radiation. PM, so that's an acronym for particulate matter. So what that is just harmful chemicals that infiltrate into your system and cause cancer, asthma, and other serious forms of sicknesses or illnesses, excuse me. This term's kind of funny, but we have a NIMBY that stands for not in my backyard. So what that is, right, is some folks say, let's say, I'm going to use this as an example, right? Right, there's not a lot of warehousing in Beverly Hills, right? So like, let's say, for instance, right, this isn't a real case, well, not that I know of, but someone says, oh, I don't want the warehouse here, but go put it somewhere else. Not in my backyard, but you can put it somewhere else. And that's not our ultimate goal as well. We want to make sure that this stuff is away from residents and, community. We don't want to put it in someone else's backyard just to get it out of ours. Then contamination and pollution, they can be very confusing, or I used to mix them up. So contamination is just the presence of something unnatural, and then pollution is the byproduct of contamination. So when that harmful substance affects people, so when that unnatural presence starts to get people sick. So I'm going to speak a little bit about our history. This is very exciting. How did it begin? So community organized and fought against a notorious toxic site known as the Stringfellow pits. Our founder is actually a woman named Penny Newman. She started this whole organizing around the Stringfellow acid pits. They were, or what they are actually, they're still in cleanup. It's like, it used to be like these waters that were contaminated, I believe, by some of the stuff that was left over from the war. Some of the chemicals were leaked into the water. She was an elementary school teacher at the time. She realized a lot of her community were getting sick, and she asked around, what's going on, and she would overhear, students or fellow community members talking about, swimming there for the summer or stuff, and she noticed a lot of her students, were itchy or were complaining about their skin feeling weird, and community as well. So they went and did some kind of investigation to figure out what was going on, community research, and they found that people were getting sick because of these Stringfellow pits that were, it's like now they're cleaning them up, right? But Penny Newman is not even going to be able to see this in her lifetime, right? This is going to take, I think, around 200 years for them to clean up every single thing that, right? Because it seeps into the soil. So it's not even going to be in her lifetime that she's going to be able to see this project completed. But this is really cool because it started community creating awareness, so organizing, and then I included a photo of of an old deodorant brand as a protest against the Stringfellow toxic pits. So that used to be, it was a joke, right? So that's a deodorant bottle, and it says, "Won't help these pits." They're talking about the Stringfellow pits, but like this deodorant bottle that's like so good won't even help these pits. It's just a play on the situation. And then I inserted a little picture of the overhead view of the pits and what they look like now. And so I mentioned, this was a 28-year-old battle for the cleanup of the site, and when they finally won, an agreement for them to clean up the site, they still have to implement a plan that's going to take over 200 years, or around 200 years to clean up. And then moving on, so this is really cool. This is before I started working at CCAJ. This was our first billboard, and I say it was our because I do consider myself, being part of this, even if I wasn't in here. This is, a fight that I'm in. So this was our first billboard. It was inspired from a comment made by a developer who told us to put up a sign to warn people, right? So he said it mockingly. He said it, well, the story goes, right? He said, oh, you guys should put up a sign, right? Like, kind of like, stop complaining, start blah, 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 and so we did. It's welcome to Riverside County. We're number one in the dirtiest air in the nation, and we have deadly health impacts, which is true. We do have the deadliest air in the nation. It's because usually, well, actually, I'll dive into this a little bit later to get to this presentation with time. And so then we have, right, the second portion, the digital version of the billboard, and then it has our contact information, so our old website. And then actually I want to talk a little bit about something very serious, right? Not everything on here is serious, but this is, where we start seeing kind of how this impacts community and who it's impacting, right? So a study done by Loma Linda. So we partnered with Loma Linda to do a study that shows cancer clusters near the BNSF rail yard. So that, if folks weren't aware, there is a huge rail yard right in the heart of San Bernardino. It's where the BNSF and I think the Pacific, it's two different rail yards, two different rail lines, I guess, that pass, but they're constantly passing through these neighborhoods. The rail yard is literally based there, and we found that 47% of Ramona and Alessandro Elementary School. So we went into two of the elementary schools closest to warehouses, and we found that, and near the BNSF rail yard, we found that 47% of Ramona and Alessandro Elementary School showed to have asthma or asthma-like symptoms. So that's really crazy to think about, right? Because this school, like, literally close to half the school has asthma or asthma-like symptoms. And, 70% of the parents did not know that their children had asthma or symptoms. And also there has been studies that shown that elevation of cancer among women, that there is an elevation of cancer, among women who live near the BNSF. So let's dive a little bit into pollution, and how our communities are being polluted. Did you know that transportation is one of the greatest contributors to climate change, right? Because of their emissions, because of high emissions. And then the ports. So this is what I was talking about, right? Why we have the deadliest air in the nation. So the ports, in LA, so the air, right? Because I've gotten this discussion, this I guess argument from folks, right? Like, well, the air in LA is pretty bad, right? There's no way that we're worse. The reason why we are worse is because the air travels from the LA ports down to the Inland Empire, and it just sits here as it is a valley. So we're in a valley, right? We're surrounded by mountains, which just makes our air so much, it makes it more difficult for all of that nasty stuff, all that fog, all that, the smog, like, for all of that to get out of the mountains and get out of our valley, right? It's really hard because it's just kind of stuck here, and that's why we have the deadliest air. So why is this important? Around 40% of the goods transported through around 40% of the goods transported through the U.S. travel through the inland region. We have the highest concentration of Amazon warehouses in the country, which still remains true. And so I'm going to dive in a little bit onto what we actually do and what our projects are and what we focus on. So one of the projects that we've been working on is Regeneration California. We just launched it, I believe, late last year. We just launched this campaign, and it's basically to shut down the gas plants in California with the priority of environmental justice communities, or gas plants being inside environmental justice communities who are already impacted by the cumulative sources of pollution, right? So a trip to, so how this all started and what we did when we go on these trips, and there are many trip opportunities and such, right, to do advocacy at a state level, local level, even like somewhere in between or nearby, right? Like, so for instance, we went to the California Public Utilities Commission, the CPUC, and opposed the 4 gas plants that were scheduled to be terminated, and decision was taken back. So a little bit of back information on this. We had heard that they were going to shut down 4 gas plants that were in these oceans, and 4 different environmental justice communities. And then they decided to take back their decision and extended their lifespan by 3 years. Because, right, their argument was, we don't have the energy for it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which we know it's not true, right? We do have the technology now, and we do have the energy to replace those plants. We don't know why that decision was taken back, but the point is, we went with community and we advocated in solidarity with these other communities to get these gas plants shut down. Now, at the end of the day, right, we did not get the 3 years completely taken off, but we did get 2 years taken off. So now these 4 gas plants will only be up and running for 1 more year, and then they are terminated forever. So what I added a little chant: shut down gas plants now, right? Because we want to make sure that these gas plants are not impacting our community anymore. And then, so we had the campaign launch in Sacramento to start transitioning from dirty sources to clean renewable energy. So we have, right, in all of this, we have something called the just transition, right? We want to make sure that community who does operate these plants, they get some kind of support from the government, or some program support or something, right? Financial assistance. So when they are transitioning into a new job, they do receive that training to work the solar panels, right, to work the renewable energy, and not have somebody else from, maybe not the community, come in and do that job because they're trained. We want to make sure community gets that training, gets that support while they're making the transition, so we don't have any folks laid off of work because of our transitions. So we have an advanced clean truck rule. It's ACT. We have joined with community to do truck counts, in which we have found the following. I like to play this game when I go and when I have the opportunity to present. I like to play this game where I have people guess when and what time we found these facts, right? So what the time capsule was. So we have found that about 748 trucks passed on the 215 freeway in San Bernardino, and 900 trucks on the 215/60 in Riverside, San Bernardino County. Recently, we had a number that spiked up to 1,162, I believe. And then, so we can't really play this game right now, but we found those facts in 1 hour, which is insane. There are that many trucks passing an hour, and we have multiple freeways in the inland region. And then we also dive in, right? We have a lot of partnerships that we do, and we work a lot with workers' rights, no pun intended. So what a community benefits agreement is something that can be done when there's a project that comes in that the community does not want, but we want to make sure that we are getting some kind of benefit off of it, even if we do not shut down the project completely. To give some back information on this as well, we have a project going on in San Bernardino. Well, not us, right? But Eastgate, which is a developer, and I think we believe for him to be partnering with Amazon, as they are common partners. They are planning on creating a warehouse in the airport of San Bernardino. So San Bernardino has an airport. It doesn't even serve community. It serves for cargo flights, so to transport goods in and out. So this airport, right, they want to add a warehouse there, which is going to expand transportation by a lot. And right, folks are worried about traffic, but the worst thing about this, right, is there's not really any protections for community. There's going to be about 500 trucks on our freeways additionally. And just to give a little bit of insight to this, right, to this airport, they fly about 4 cargo flights a week, and they are planning to go to about 24 to 27 flights a week eventually, which is a mass increase in transportation. Right. So they actually, just to give a little bit of updates on this, they they have decided to continue with the project, and they had to do an environmental assessment on this, and they found that there are not going to be any environmental significant, and in quotations, right, significant environmental impacts. So they are going to continue with this project. Now what we are doing to take action on this, and now it is public, so I'm able to speak about it. They are able to, or we are partnering with other organizations to sue the administration for not doing a proper environmental assessment of this, right? How can you not find any significant impacts when you will have 500 trucks and 24 to 27 flights a day traveling through these communities? How will the air, how will the people not be, quote unquote, significantly impacted, right? That's absurd. It's absolutely ridiculous, and we know it's false information. So this is kind of halting the project a little bit, which is good for us, right? We want to make sure we push it off as much as possible, but also make sure that there's an adequate environmental assessment so our community benefits can go into this contract, as they have been ignored. They have been ignored up to this point. Our community benefits agreement, we say, okay, you're going to bring in this project. We want to make sure that that this brings air filters for our schools, an indoor recreational center, infrastructure improvements, etc. Right? So what is the community going to get back to be able to kind of barely be able to combat this mass amount of pollution that's going to be coming into their communities, right? And since this has been ignored up till now, we decided to sue the administration together with other folks in the partnership. A really cool thing that was recently passed in the city of Frupa Valley is an alternative truck route. Miraloma Village is a community. It's highly impacted by pollution, as three warehouses directly surround it. So this picture, right, has my mom and a volunteer. We went out to community during the wildfires, right after they had calmed down a little bit, to hand out gas masks or what we could find at the stores, masks and water. I think it was like 2 waters and a mask per bag that we were able to gather and hand out to people in their homes. But this was because, right, this community is already so vulnerable and so susceptible to having asthma attacks, as they are surrounded by warehousing, and warehousing brings in a lot of trucks. So they already, they're surpassed the cancer threshold, right? So this community is very vulnerable to that, and we can't even imagine them trying to leave their homes during a wildfire where there's so much smoke and their lungs are not even, the strongest that they can be because of all the pollution that they're living in every single day, right? So Maryland community has been in a long fight for environmental justice. Many battles were lost, but finally an alternative truck rule was passed. So this alternative truck rule is going to make sure that trucks over a certain, I think, I forgot the exact weight, but if they weigh over a certain amount, they cannot pass through this community. They cannot pass near this community unless they have direct business with the warehouse right in front of them, which is like Arrow. I forgot what the warehouse was actually. But they have a warehouse right in front of them. They have 3 warehouses surrounding them. And the warehouse I'm talking about is across the street. So unless these trucks have any business having to pass through this road, they will no longer be able to pass through this road, which is absolutely awesome. Because it's going to reduce levels. It's going to reduce cancer rate levels by 60%. But even then, this community is still going to be past the threshold of cancer risks. So I talked about the fires, and then what I was talking about, the many battles were lost, is this community is so resilient. They fought the 3 warehouses that went up. They fought each and every one of them, and even though those battles were lost, the community still got together, still shut up, and we were able to get the alternative truck route passed, which is what I'm talking about when I say, community power. It really shines through. It really does work. Excuse me. But yeah, this community, I hats off to them, because they've really gone through it, and they're still pushing through to fight for better, healthy living, which everyone deserves. And it shouldn't even be, clean air shouldn't even be up for conversation. It should just be something that's given to us, right? Why should we have, I think it's absurd that we even have to debate the fact that we deserve clean air just like everybody else. So moving on to a little bit of a more positive note, still pretty heavy, but you know, like I mentioned, there's a lot of different environmental justice stuff going on around the nation and the state. So I was fortunate enough to go on a trip to New York City, where they had this really awesome Brooklyn climate justice march by an organization named Uprose. A few volunteers were able to join me, and we marched on the streets of Brooklyn, you know, in calling out for support, right, in terms of environmental justice. So we want to make sure, right, because Brooklyn's environmental justice looks a little bit different than ours. For instance, right, environmental justice in Fresno, they're talking, or Bakersfield, excuse me, they're talking about their pesticides. In San Francisco, they're talking about, right, gentrification, right, folks being kicked out of their homes, luxury homes being built, and people are not able to afford it, right? It's crazy how expensive it is to live in San Francisco, and these communities, these people that have lived there their whole lives, are now being kicked out because of these homes. So that's their form of EJ, right? The Coachella Valley, right? Their droughts. We have different forms of EJ throughout the nation. Kansas City, right? Also the droughts, or excuse me, I believe it's the droughts. It has something to do with water. I can't remember exactly, but my point is that there is environmental justice, and it looks differently everywhere. And this is kind of what they're talking about, right? So sea levels rising, etc. And that was something that I was able to learn a lot from. And it was a really cool experience, and it was really a really unifying experience, as we were able to march. It was so crazy. I was able to march next to um I think descendants or the grandchildren of Black Panthers, which is super cool to me. And then, so as we're moving towards the end of this PowerPoint, I just have an ask, right? Do you want to join the movement? Do you want to get involved? If so, it's fairly simple. We have a link. It's just a bit.ly/CCAJ volunteer, and on that, it basically is a link that shows you kind of what there is and what you might be interested, right? Maybe direct actions such as marches, protests, pickets, etc. may not be for you, but maybe you like community organizing, maybe you like coming to meetings, maybe you like tabling with me, etc. Maybe you're interested in writing op-eds to decision makers, like, right, with Anthony, our communications director. Maybe you like to be politically and civically involved with our director, right, or with working with her on projects around that. Italia, she's great. She works around residency, citizenship, DACA. Right now, a big work of hers is census, and her team, right? So there's a lot of different things that you can get involved with. But the really cool thing about this is, I think that everyone, if enough of us get involved, if enough of us work together, this is something that can actually happen. It's been proven to happen, right? I think once I saw something that said, it was like I don't know if it's a meme, I don't know what it's called, I'm not very up to date with what these things are, but it's basically, it was like a picture, and explained, right, when you are sitting in traffic and you're like, there's so much traffic, and then it said, when you realize you are the traffic, right? So without you sitting in that car and a couple other people sitting in those cars, there would be no traffic, right? So without you sitting in this movement, even if you think you're just one car, you are the movement, you are the traffic, right? So with all of this, I think I'm just going to leave off on that note. I think that really stuck with me, right? Because I used to think, well, what am I going to do? I'm just one person. Like, there's so many people here. It doesn't even matter if I leave. No, it really does. It matters. It matters. Every single person that is there is doing work. Every single person that is doing there is speaking up. Even if you're just walking, if you're not even chanting, if you are just there, if you're just present, you show up, it is being an activist, it is standing up for your community, it is fighting back against environmental injustices. And I really hope you folks can join us, and I want to thank you so much for having me on this presentation. Thank you so much, and I'm really looking forward to the Q&A, and I really hope you enjoyed this presentation. It's my first time doing a virtual one. I'm not sure if I'm doing very well at it, but I usually like being with people and being in community and engaging folks. So this may be a little bit differently, but I'm definitely looking forward to the Q&A. And I want to thank your professor so much for allowing me to do this. And with that, I'm going to close off. Thank you so much. I'm Gabby. Please sign up at this link if you're interested, or if you have any questions, please let your professor know, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.